Hey Tube, ILS360 here. Is your snowblower not starting this year? It's not firing up like it should. I'm going to show you how to assess and fix the problem with the snowblower. Let's say you pulled out your snowblower right before a big storm came, or pulled it out right after the big storm came, and you go to turn it on. Okay, check your fuel knob's on. That's a good thing. Okay, your throttle, turn it up all the way. So two simple things to check. Make sure your key, if you got a key, this is a plastic key, make sure the key is on, and if you can see the wires, make sure the wires aren't loose. Some have primer bulbs, some have chokes. This one has both. Usually just use this unless it starts and doesn't want to continue running. Then try using your choke. So let's try starting it. Alright, so no fire. It doesn't really matter whether you use this or this. This will turn over a little faster, might start it a little easier, but so it didn't start. Now what do? Well, you try to figure out two things. Are you having problems with spark, or are you having problems with fuel? Another simple thing to do, whether you have a little carburetor cleaner, a little bit of starter fluid, try to find the intake to the carburetor, spray a little in. Another thing to note, if you prime it and you can hear it priming and it starts and shuts off, you prime it again, choke it, starts and shuts off, or it starts and runs with choke. Once you turn the choke off, it shuts off. That are signs of a dirty carburetor. So what you need to do, you need to find your carburetor. This carburetor happens to be under this cover, if it will come off. There you go, there's your carburetor. Now another thing to check, if you can see your carburetor before you check, or before you try starting, or if you start your snowblower and it revs, it goes wah, and it just revs higher and higher. This is your throttle and it is stuck. Easy way to get it unstuck, take some carburetor cleaner. Make sure you use carb cleaner. You spray underneath here where it looks like there's a little sponge. Spray inside the carburetor and flex it back and forth a bunch of times. Try straightening it up, get it kind of cleared out, stop it. Soak the sponge, it's like a little sponge in there. Soak the sponge in motor oil, usually like a 30 weight, something like that. WD-40 would work too. Motor oil is the best for this. You soak that in it, put a little, dab it on this side, dab it on that side, and it kind of just soaks it up. And, try to move it back and forth. You can even put some in the carburetor, not very much oil though. It's not going to hurt the engine too much for a long period of time will. So just a little bit on the inside and move it back and forth. Try to get the oil worked in there, and it shouldn't stick again for that year anyways, or that winter. So back to, if you're not getting any start, any ignition, no pop, no nothing, take a little carb cleaner, starting fluid, spray a little in there. Let's see, I think that's choke off. started right up after I primed the carburetor a little bit with some carb cleaner. But that also still means that this is a dirty carburetor. So this carburetor will need to be pulled apart and cleaned. If you look up on my channel or anyone else's channel, usually if you follow snowblower carburetor or lawnmower carburetor, it's usually close enough and it has the same instructions that you need to follow to do these type of carburetors. This is a Briggs & Stratton carburetor, as you can tell there. But I'll go ahead and pull this carb off, or just get into it and clean it. I'll show you how to do just kind of a simple clean. It doesn't take that much time, and it usually does the job. If it still doesn't do the job, then you need to pull the whole carburetor off and clean all the jets. I'll talk about here in a second. So we're going to go ahead and pull that off. Even though it started, this is a customer's, and I want to make sure it will always start for him all winter long. I don't want to, oh, it started, that was easy, and just shove it off. That's not the right thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this cover off here and get that bowl loosened up, and we'll show you how to clean it. Alrighty, YouTube. As you can see, there's some floaties in there, which usually is water. So probably a small amount of water in there, which happens pretty often on a snowblower. If I ever say snowmobile in this video, no, I'm talking about a snowblower. But it's pretty clean. It's pretty good shape. That tells me that it was probably water that was causing the problem. Always check these. It's the bolt that goes on the bottom of the carburetor. It actually holds it up. It's in a size 13. But always check those. Make sure they're really clean. If there's grime in there, you can usually use 4-aught steel wool. That's 40 steel wool. And that's the best thing to clean carburetors with. That's the best I've found. And that's what I've used for years. But this is what a Briggs & Stratton plug looks like. A lot of Tecumseh, yes, there's still Tecumseh out there, unfortunately. The Tecumseh plugs or bolts are a little bit longer, about like there. And they'll have, you can see there's little jet pieces or holes on either side, and one on the top. Well, on those, they've got a bunch of them, one down the center, but there's one that's hidden amongst the threads. Some engines have, or some of the engines have them, some don't. They're either amongst the threads or at the start of the threads or the end of the threads. And they're really small. You got to look really close. And just clean that little tiny hole out. You can usually use a sewing needle or a pin for sewing, or if you have a wire brush, take one of the wires and kind of bend it out, and you can kind of shove it in there and clean it out. Just do not ever use a drill bit on these. Even if the drill bit's supposedly the same size or a little smaller even, don't ever use a drill bit on these. It will destroy them, and the engine will never run like it should again. So don't ever use a drill bit. So yeah, I'm gonna spray this down with carb cleaner. Spray this down with carb cleaner. I'm gonna spray it. There's a little channel in the center there. I'm gonna spray up in there with a little carb cleaner. Hopefully we'll get it cleaned out. I'm running out of time. I gotta go get another memory card, so see you in a second, YouTube. Alrighty, so that's all clean and purty. And I sprayed that out, so I know that's clean. And all the holes the fuel comes out of, I sprayed up inside here. And I also turned the fuel on and cleared the fuel line out until I could smell fresh fuel and shut it off, so I know there's fresh fuel in the lines, because he told me he put brand new fuel in it, so that's good. That's also another thing to note. If if you're gonna have a snowblower, it's a good idea to put fuel stabilizer in it, no matter what time you're using it. You know, if you're using it in the winter time, make sure you keep fuel stabilizer in it. In the summertime, yeah, keep fuel stabilizer in it, because that's when it sits. By the time it comes around again, it should be all right. Best fuel stabilizer I know of is Tron. Usually find it in the boating section of Walmart. This video has nothing to do with that. I'm just letting you know what I use. They're stable out there as well, or stable, but I don't necessarily like that. That is not my favorite product. So just letting you guys know what I use. I'm not saying, you know, I favor one company to the other. I just like one product to the other. So one thing to also note is these little rubber O-rings. Do not spray them with carb cleaner. Try to keep the carb cleaner away from them, because they swell really badly when you get carburetor cleaner on them. One way to remedy if they do swell, you know, if they're not cracked or anything, is to let them sit in the sun or get them kind of warm or kind of hot. Don't put them in a microwave. Don't put them in an oven. You know, just try to get it warm. Even sit it like on the dashboard of your truck or something, where it's going to get hot. And sometimes it helps. Sometimes it really doesn't do anything. But don't spray that out, and don't put carb cleaner in the fuel line either, because there's some carburetors, the needle seat itself is made out of the same kind of material sometimes, and it will swell up and actually completely constrict and not let any fuel through at all. So that's a big no-no. So I'm going to reassemble this carburetor, put this cover back on, and see if she'll start first pull on its own. See you in a second, YouTube. Alrighty, YouTube. Let's see if she'll start up again. Well, usually when you prime it as well, you should kind of hear a gurgly noise. We'll keep it unchoked for now. See if she starts up. Let's pop. Let's go ahead and choke her. Oh, might be nice to turn on the fuel. Ouch. I said ouch because I ground into my finger recently. Yeah. Wonderful thing grinding into your finger. It's a wonderful feeling too. There we go. Well, now it runs like a dream. It runs even better now than it did before when I got it to start. I also need to check your oil. Forgot to do that first. Yeah, we're fine. It's clean as well. Yeah, I didn't wipe it off, but I know it's full. So that covers all the things that can go wrong with fuel. Let me shut this gate real quick. Oop. Of course, the gate doesn't want to close. So like I was saying, that covers everything that can go wrong with fuel. I'm not going to cover too well with spark, but I'm going to cover as best as I can. So say we threw a little carb cleaner, whatever, into the carburetor and pulled it over and it didn't start, still didn't do anything. Then what you want to do, you want to find the spark plug and pull the spark plug out. You're going to check the spark plug, see if it's clean. If it's not, Usually, if you spray it down with a little carb cleaner, a little bit of a wire brush on it. I wouldn't use steel wool. I would definitely go with more of a wire brush. Brush it down, spray it down again, make sure it's dry, and pop it back in the hole. Tighten it back up. See if it'll start again. If it still won't start and you pull it out and it's wet or oily or wet with water, then you need to evacuate the chamber. And a way to do that is, see where the spark plug is. The spark plug's on top here. It's underneath the muffler over there. You can, this engine's sideways. If you had a vertical, piston instead of a power sport or whatever these are technically called, you can kind of turn the cylinder upside down, try to get it out. Sometimes you can, if it's water, if you spray a little carb cleaner in there, spray it in 3 or 4 seconds or more, and then pull it over a few times until you don't see any more water come out or mist. Spray a little more in there, pull it over a few more times, and then screw the spark plug back in, see if it'll start. If it'll start, great. If it won't, then you've got a little more of an issue. Pull it out, see if it's still wet. If it's still wet, continue with the little bit of carb cleaner, so on and so forth. Also, if you can, get it in a warmer spot where the engine won't be cold, and like in the garage, put a heater on it or something. See if you can get it warmed up a little bit and see if you can get the water out. Now if it's gas, you just need to pull the spark plug, pull a few times, evacuate it. If it's still wet, sometimes carb cleaner will help, because if it's old fuel, it is harder to get it to evaporate. So spray a little carb cleaner in there, pull it over a few times, stick the plug in, pull it out, it's wet, repeat. And also, if it still is wet with fuel, let it sit open. Also, if it's wet with fuel and it's continually wet with fuel, your float bowl on your carburetor may be stuck. So in other words, it's either be stuck or has a hole in it and is filled with fuel. So it's not shutting off anymore, and it's just letting fuel go into the intake. That's another symptom that you get sometimes when you get it started and it just bogs and it won't run, and it won't. Sometimes it's the float bowl. If it's wet with oil, though, it's because it's been sitting on its side or sitting upright or sitting, some people will store their snowblower like that upright in their garage so they have kind of a good space. Same thing, you can usually spray a little carb cleaner in there, pull it over a few times, try to get it cleared out. And when you start it, make sure you're outdoors. Anytime you're ever working on any engine, make sure you're outdoors. Of course, the carbon monoxide poisoning possibility. But especially with the oil, it'll smoke like crazy. Just let it idle. Don't throttle it up. Just let it kind of idle or mid-range. If it'll only run in full choke or full throttle, then whatever. But let it run until it's done its thing, it stops smoking, then let it idle down. Then you can shut it off. Make sure you check your oil also if you have oil in your cylinder, because you could fill your cylinder with a lot of the oil and have little oil in the crankcase. So I hope I haven't bored you, talked too much. I hope I filled in everything that could possibly go wrong with a snowblower. Doesn't matter if it's new or old. They're all engines are pretty closely the same, unless you have injection, but there's no snowblowers that I know of that have injection systems. So I hope you have a good one, YouTube. If you have any question, don't hesitate to leave a comment or PM me, if there's such a thing as PMing anymore. I'm not even sure. PM means personal message. So no question is stupid. Don't feel stupid for asking a question. Ask me anything you want to know, anything you have a question about, whether it's snow blowers, snowmobiles, lawnmowers, chainsaws, dirt bikes, road bikes, bicycle engines, anything with an engine. If you have a question, just ask me. If I don't get back to you, it's because Google's changing all the designs and I can't get into my inbox anymore. So, still got to figure that one out. I hope you have a good one, YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I didn't bore you. Have a good one.